Time for waking up. Okay, so we are here to talk to you about a project that we've been working on with Charlton Park Academy that goes back a fair few years, but this particular rollout of this project began last summer, so from around August time. And there's many interesting things about this particular project. One is the commitment from the school for the scope of it. So you're going to hear about the kind of how we envisage it being rolled out. We're going to take you through just the background of it and what the technology is that makes it possible. Then into how it's working with the pupils now from the PMLD phase and then into the ASC phase, and then possibly beyond that. And then a look at the impact as well that it's having so far. So, moving on, I'm going to just play a video from the head because it kind of puts everything into context about what the school is looking for and how we've been able to kind of help them get the ball rolling on it with a kind of vision around where it's going to go. So this is Mark, the head teacher.
Hello there, my name's Mark Delempton. I'm the principal here at Charlton Park Academy Trust, South East London. We've chosen to improve our digital infrastructure by ensuring that all young people are having access to a high quality learning environment, enhanced by using the overlays, the virtual reality that these, the Sensory Guru and the Magic Rooms brings to us. And really successfully created these fabulous environments which are interactive with lots of new sorts of switches. In principle, what I've been trying to do is, because of the sensory needs of our children, there's insufficient sensory rooms that you can actually have in a school where so many young people need sensory experiences. So the idea I had was to make the room, the specialist room, so that the young people don't need to leave their classroom. So we've initially tried these 6 classrooms of our new build, and now we've just extended to another 12, which are being installed currently, and then we're going to be installing in a few further, probably another 8 this summer, so that all of our classrooms will have enhanced digital technology. So our digital infrastructure is installed throughout. The development of resources can be shared amongst all of my teaching colleagues. Lee and his team have helped create some of the fantastic centralised resources, which again, templates that other people can use. We're happy to share our resources with other people. We want to collaborate with others. So we'd really like to enhance this type of experience for all young people.
I forgot to say that I am Lee from Sensory Guru. Just to hear some random interloper at the front, that is who I am.
And I'm Catherine, and of course CENMAC is based at Charlton Park Academy, and I thought I'd just add, and I said it, this morning at the opening, that Mark has a passion and a vision for the use of technology and pushing the boundaries of that technology and looking at how we can integrate those tools into the classroom. I think there's a long history, like Lee said, of using all this technology, and I think way back when the first interactive floors were around, we were one of the first schools to put that into a shared space, which was our multi-hall, and we very quickly realised that it had multiple uses for physical, for attention, for engagement. We had in rebound therapy, all sorts of uses, and suddenly the hall was booked out more than we could use it from Monday to Friday. So we ended up buying, I think, 3 additional mobile devices that then went into classrooms because they were the best teaching tool, one of the most engaging teaching tools that we could have. And I think this whole project is kind of moving that all down the line, that actually we're putting all those kind of sensory and interactive materials into the classroom, so it becomes part and parcel of teaching, not something separate that we go to use as a one-off. So yeah, it's really Mark's vision that is kind of allows us, he puts trust into the staff and into the technology, because we're often at the early stages of it and we're not really sure of the how it's going to run. Also, we have to take other people along with us, teachers that are not used to teaching that way, and there's a lot of training and a lot of upskilling, but sort of you get a few years down the line and everyone just sees it in part and parcel of their teaching. So Briar's here, we use Soundbeam, we use Cosmo, we use a whole range of different technology throughout the school in lots of different environments, and the idea with this is that we're putting it all at the fingertips of the teacher in the classroom. So yeah.
I was just going to, I don't need that. I was just going to say, you said at the fingertips of the teachers, but also of the students now.
Yeah,
because, and I'm sure that will be explained also, just any way you think that a student could engage, be it by breathing or hitting or blinking or anything, every student becomes equal on footing for making the room react to them, which is very, very exciting, I'm sure we'd agree.
Yeah, picking up on that point, so I spent probably the last 20 or so years working in this sector, making different types of access tools, and I meet a lot of therapists, I meet a lot of teachers, parents, and there's a lot of joined up thinking that kind of overlaps when it comes to communication, assistive technology, AAC, all of these things. There's people coming at it from a different angle. So what I thought about was if we made one platform that would enable us to utilise all of those different input technologies, all of the AAC side of things as well, into one platform that you can use for lesson delivery. So we came up with the idea of Magic Room, and to take you through just a basic overview of what this is, I've created this kind of step-by-step way of understanding it. So it starts off with a PC server in each classroom that creates a wireless network. And then what we do is we basically pair up and connect any, I call these conventional access devices, right? So like any switch that you can imagine, we can take that as an input. Xbox and XAT controllers, speech we can take, sound we can take, breathing we can take as an input. All of the standard mouse, keyboard, eye gaze, whatever it is. So any modality that you might have to interact, we can capitalise on that. To make things happen, okay, so what we're making happen here would be any kind of event that you might require an output to. So in the system it would be supporting up to 4 displays, so 4 different projectors that can do independent things. So not just this immersion idea of like we're in a big underwater scene. You can use different displays for different levels of information that might be useful for someone who has attention deficit disorder or something like that as well. You can link it to VR. Everything in the system is geared towards that. It has the internet embedded into it, so we can basically get any web page to appear just by speech or by switch or button or anything like that. That then brought us to the next phase, which was to how to control it. So one of the prime ways to do it that makes it easy for educators is by speech, so they can wander around the classroom and control every aspect of the system purely with the microphone. So one like this, or a lapel mic, and then you can speak key commands and it can basically interact with everything in the classroom, which means you can dial up and down the amount of stimulation that's going on. You can say everything off, which is the command in Magic Room, and the whole room will go black. Right? You can then, so if you've got people that kind of need to be looking at layered content, so things that are not necessarily embedded in the scene, you can basically remove backgrounds and all kinds of things like that. Okay. So after we sorted out control, then we thought we needed to create a system of our own that would actually pair to the system and enable us to create controllers. So if you're going to create a lesson, like an interactive lesson using this system, you can then target specific interactions for specific pupils and to their devices. So if they're using iPads or Android tablets or Tobii eye tracking devices or any of these things, they pair to the same PC network, and then when you run it, it synchronizes all of the data to those devices. So you've got the controllers you need for the lesson you're doing right now, basically. And that's customizable inside the system. So you would actually design it yourself and then sync it. Then, because we already make these things, like Magic Mirror and so on, we've rewired them inside it so we can then control them. Then we remembered that we have sensory in our name, and then so we need to be able to integrate all of the sensory things. So anything that you would typically see, like bubble tubes, fibre optics, infinity tunnels, UV lights and all this kind of stuff, is pretty straightforward for us to control as well, which means that you can now talk to the bubble tube. You can say, bubble tube off, and it will just go off, and all that sort of stuff. Makes life more convenient. And then there's another strand, which is basically linking it to more consumer type devices. So instead of having just this thing focusing on DMX that we talk about with sensory stuff, we can then use Philips Hue off-the-shelf lighting systems, and then you can integrate that, which then means smart plugs and all those kind of things. So the system really is designed as a kind of teaching system, but it has environmental control built into it, has AAC built into it, has assistive technology inputs built into it, and it has the internet and all kinds of content display built into it as well. So that's an overview, and then bringing it all together in a graphic would kind of give you, if I went crazy and thought we just project onto 4 surfaces, we can create an embedded environment like this, whereby all of these people with the different access devices that they would have can all interact contextually within it, based on their own learning requirement. So if we're working with someone who's single switch, we can get them working with single switch, or then we can spin that to iPad. Then we can have 2 outputs, so like input and a secondary action. We can also do things whereby we encode speech commands into QR codes, and in our app you've got the option to scan it. So we can then talk about objects. So we can say to pupils, go and find me these things, like treasure hunt. They go and locate them, they bring them over to the tablet, they scan them, and they action things in the room. So it does all those kind of things as well. It has another major feature built into it around using speech control and text-to-speech. So you can actually type words that do things in the room. So you can type the word, like I said before, everything off, and then you can just select it as an event, and it will just turn everything off. So you can make your literacy lessons and things like that all interactive, based around functional things that are happening in your environment. Yeah? This is new, so I don't expect everyone to kind of get their head around this. This is probably one of the first presentations I've given to a group of people about this. That's not just one-to-one for ages. So like I'm just trying to remember that people don't know it. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, if you go and see us around the corner, we can make it sort of easier to understand. But obviously this is what we've been working with in Charlton classrooms, and we're looking at different types of pupil needs. So that brings us to the next part of this, is looking at kind of PMLD was the first area that we were most interested in, because it's the area that is hardest to reach, to cater for. So as Brian mentioned before about using sound or breath as an interaction, we're looking at ways that we can basically enable anyone to interact. So if we wanted to design a lesson, the question is basically, how are people going to participate in this lesson? That's the first thing. So this kind of design thinking comes into the way that you can structure things, and then you can actually implement solutions to enable people to interact. Which means, and this is again getting back to kind of like responsive environments and to basically dialing more into people with PMLD. We need to be looking at them more often to see what levels of nuance they might have in their interaction. So they need to be more kind of like the star of the show when it comes to putting the lesson together. More inbound interaction creates more likelihood for more outbound interaction. And this is kind of the way we've been adapting the system. So it's fully supportive of any mode of access, whatever it is. If we can find a mode of access, however subtle, and we can make it repeated, like as a control site, and they can use that every time, then we can dial into that and enable them to participate and interact as well. So it's not just off-the-shelf type solutions that you find within assistive technology. You can start thinking more broadly about how we can get people to interact on their own terms. So we started with the PMLD phase. and we thought it probably might end there, and then all of a sudden the head came over and he said, well, we want to do the next 12 classrooms. So this was news to me, right? Which was good news, by the way. And then, so it means we can then look at our use cases and how we use it. So obviously the content that's being used in PMLD is nowhere going to be the same as what's used for ASC classrooms. In there, we're kind of looking more about how you transition between different activities and using the system more for how the day rolls out, and kind of limiting incidents where possible and so on and so forth. It's less about the access part, it's more about how you use the room as a tool to get other things going on. And the idea is that it's open-ended, so nothing's prescribed. If you've got a hypothesis, you can kind of program it into the system and see if it works. And that's one of the main key things about the system, is that it's fully adaptable to your own working environments. You don't have to sit with presets, you can customise it to your own curriculum needs and to your own pupils' needs, and make it possible for them to access it. So here is Karen, class teacher, under duress, being filmed,
I think we all will.
who's normally like very flowing, and in this she's very staccato, but she gets her point across. So here we go.
Our students have been showing lots of responses to the Magic Room. We've been using the aquarium programme a lot and trying the different coloured backgrounds, especially as a lot of them have VI needs. And we've been noticing lots of differences in the tracking that the students have been doing, especially as we've got the images that appear on the ceiling. So with a black background, we've been making dolphins and sharks appear by using our voice. Dolphin. We noticed that some of our students were really smiling when this specific animal came across the screen, and they were tracking it from left to right. This was a difference between the black background and also the white background. White. Shark. We've also found it really useful having the projector up on the screen, so the images are projected on there at the same time as being shown on the board. This is especially true for our students that have been lying down on the beds whilst they've been in class. They've also been able to really focus their attention on the images that have been projected.
So, what's going on there is, obviously she's using just a standard wireless microphone to control things in the system. Helpful to see that she's holding one of these ones, so you can see that it's that simple. But you can also use like lapel type microphones as well if you want them to be a bit more discreet. And then any action in the environment can be done by speech. So as she's saying, like black is the command to make the background go dark, white would make it go white. If I said light's green, they would go green, and so on and so forth. So whatever commands, they're all customizable as well, so you can put whatever commands you want that are going to work for your turn of phrase into the system and enable these things to work. And you can add anything you like to doing that. Also, she mentioned about the ceiling projector. I didn't get a good bit of footage, so hence the weird pan down bit. But the idea there is that there's a few pupils in the class who then this position in their chair is kind of looking up. So we just created this little unit that enabled us to mount the projector at 90 degrees, so I could go on a wall if we wanted to, or we could just flip it vertical so it can project straight onto the ceiling. And I could hand over to someone who's seen this more often than I have, but I know from Karen's feedback that a lot of the pupils are now looking up, expecting to see that there, so it's kind of like helping to kind of motivate people's engagement, because they can now see something in their visual field, whereas before trying to get them to be looking towards a screen is more complicated. So there's those kind of things. Is there anything you want to say about pupils?
Yeah, I think I think everyone can hear me. What's really interesting is that I think, you know, in the early days when you went into a sensory room, when I was first introduced to a sensory room, people turn everything on and go, wow, look at this. And I think it's been a little bit similar with the Magic Room. It's like we've introduced the Magic Room, it's like, wow, turn it all on, and we're playing around with it, and it's really engaging, and everyone's been really enthusiastic. Now what's starting to happen is people are starting to see the aspects of it that are really valuable and engaging for individuals in the class. So like Karen is really starting to experiment in terms of the visual tracking, which is the real area that she's developing with her students. So the idea of the screen, I mean, it's the simplest thing, but you know, being able to move the screen around. She said like at break time, they're having drinks. She's actually got students that can choose what they want to watch on the ceiling, whereas, you know, that wouldn't have been possible before. And I think when, you know, like now it's looking at where we're starting to adapt the system into the curriculum. We, obviously it's like endless, the possibilities of this, which is great for the individuals in the class. But, sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, sorry. We were thinking, like, how do we start with all of this when it's quite overwhelming for the teachers? And so one of the key things we did was just structure the day by using the system. So Karen has got her whole day on the Magic Room, and so she can do it all by voice. She calls up the morning song. We've got a lovely addition. So what she used to do was she would say, "Who's here today?" and she'd wait for the reactions of her students. Now they all have their own input device, and for each student the room goes a different colour, their image comes up, their name is said, and so it's this kind of immersive feeling for the students in the classroom. And so yeah, we've structured the day, and that has worked brilliantly, and using all the different audio cues and visuals. Now she's starting to integrate it into her sensory stories and other areas of the curriculum. So we've started kind of baby steps, and we're just building and building and building on it. So hopefully in a year's time we'll be showing you some pretty fantastic kind of teaching with individuals in the system. Yeah. So sorry.
Definitely. So that's one of the key things. So if you think about it from the goals, is like, we want pupils to be more expressive and more interactive, so we need to give them more opportunities to interact and engage. And this is like a no-brainer when it comes to anyone who's dealing with AAC. How do you motivate someone to use AAC if it's basically pulled out here and there? You know, it kind of needs to be highly available all of the time, so you need to be able to use that. And then you also need to be able to, sorry, like people are putting their fingers up at me and stuff, it's like really weird. 5 minutes. Okay, well 5 minutes is just about enough to go to the next slide, but that's the general gist of it, is making it possible for people to participate as much as possible, to learn an access method that then can be then portable between any environment. Because let's face it, in the next few years, like iPad, all these technologies are now commonplace. Where does the next generation of it go to? Well, it's all going to go towards more types of integration like this, more environmental control systems are going to be based on this. And what we want to be able to do is take whatever switch access method someone has and make it portable across all platforms. So that's what we're going to see happening, and this is what we're working on, this is what we do all the time. So there's that. And then we can just quickly whiz to the next slide. Right, so just look quickly at the impact. Which obviously, Brian, I'll play her video because I edited it, so I definitely have to see it played. And then, then she can probably actually tell you more about some of the outcomes that are going on there. It's just.
I'm very fortunate on returning to Charlton Park Academy to have been given one of the new classrooms, and was part and parcel of asking and working with Sensory Guru and others to ensure that it had maximum potential for all students. I use my room primarily for short classroom groups, from PMLD, sensory, up to Pathway 1. And each person has found a unique way to access the technology. Also, we found with our level 1 students that they like to help organise and program and prepare for soundscapes or visual programs. It's a wonderful opportunity for each student to have an active part with the support that they may need to create something quite magical. It is a wonderful opportunity to give every student a voice. every student an opportunity to take part and to influence the activity for the whole group. One thing also that I have found, particularly in this new classroom, which used to be very localised but now is broader, is that the student with the least mobility or the quietest voice can have the greatest impact.
Killer ending.
Could I just say it was pyjama day that was videoed. I ripped my pyjamas off, so I always seem to have the strange t-shirts. Yes, I have some ex-colleagues here from the last millennium. I've been in special, I was mainstream, been in special for about 30 years, so I've been taken along the journey that a lot of you have been on, and I had a transplant, so I was out of education for a couple of years, and I was very unable to do what I normally did, and I had a new respect, I think, for what many of our students go through, particularly those students who are losing capacity, who were able to do things who can't anymore. And yet, through technology, whether it's lacking mobility, lacking cognitive skills, they are given an even playing field again with their colleagues. So for me, it's very emotional to be back when I could be retired. But I'm so excited, and I'm so excited for us as a teaching body, as well as for students. I mean, how many times have we dragged out the same sensory box, and which has value, but how many times have I been bored of trying to reinvent the wheel? But bringing students on board, bringing... and another thing quickly is that Ask System crashed because there was an upgrade at school, and I got on, this is up here, and Lee from Sussex sorted it in moments, and it was because we'd gone on to System 11 and I was too daft to have realised that. So it's not something you get something and then you think, this is too much effort, this is too much, I want it to work. You know, there's no point in having it if it takes 3 hours to set up. Once you've set up a system, it's there for you to just be on for seconds. And my picture was the UV immersive one, and I just say to anybody who's considering it, I opted for a UV because I knew what it was like in sensory rooms, and it's only one tiny point, but what I would like to say is, what happens is, you have a vision, and you may think this is completely random, but speak to people, speak to other colleagues, speak to sensory guru, and you can make it your own. And things that you have seen work with specific students can be incorporated, and they call it magic rooms, but our head wanted it, you know, to be sort of every day, as it's been said, it's going into every classroom. And really, your imagination and your knowledge of the students can make these rooms just out of this world. And the fact that means, and we've all had those students who we know they're on their very last moments. And for us as teachers, I think, to be able to bring to them, whether they're on achiever beds, whether they're on oxygen, whether they're on drips, whether they're just pounding from end to end in the classroom, you know, and then suddenly are engaged. It's a very, well, I sound a bit evangelical, don't I? But it's a wonderful thing. So I really would suggest that you take the opportunity to investigate further and come and look at all the things that Charlton Park Academy is having, as we would like to come and visit your schools with anything you have. Yeah, thank you. And I think I better put all my pyjamas.
We will have to end there because we are, hopefully, like I said, we'll be showing you more as it progresses and develops.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you.